Welcome to the Bioptimizers Awesome Health Podcast. And now here's your host, Wade T. Lightheart.
What if you could double your energy naturally without caffeine or stimulants in just 3 short months? It's not only possible, you can transform every aspect of your health if you follow the 12-week blueprint we've created for you in the Awesome Health System. The Awesome Health System is a free course where you receive a daily video lesson spanning the most cutting-edge secrets for air, water, exercise, sunshine, optimizers, mindset, and education. It's something most companies would charge hundreds of dollars for, yet you get it for free when you go to bioptimizers.com. To access your course, register to download the PDF report called 3 Phases of Bioptimization, which gets you access to the report and daily access to the first lesson in the 12-week, 84-day Awesome Health course.
Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. Welcome to the Awesome Health Podcast. It's Wade T. Lightheart, live and loud here from Los Angeles, California. And I am so pumped and excited today because I have a very special guest. Her name is Mascha Davis, and she is a registered dietary nutritionist. And what's interesting, she's been nationally recognized. She's also a humanitarian and the founder of Nomadista Nutrition. And interesting enough, turns out we actually met on a plane trip to Mexico. I got put in the seat and this wonderful bouncy person jumped into the seat and was like doing all these different things. And I'm like, wow, she has a lot of energy. She seems really fit. Hey, I said, what's going on with you? And next thing you know, we found out we had a lot in common. We love to travel the world. We like to make a difference. And turns out she has a crazily awesome private nutrition practice right here in Los Angeles. And at the time, I wasn't in Los Angeles. I was moving there. I said, I'd love to connect up when I get here. Well, here I am, and here she is. Now, what Nutrigenomics, and she offers this intertesting, and I think this is where cutting edge is today in nutrition. And basically, this is a way to find out how to optimize your health, manage chronic conditions, health. It's using the latest science. She's been featured on Time, CNN, Newsweek, The Washington Post, ABC News, Men's Health, Women's Health. Holy, look at all these things. Reader's Digest, many more. I mean, can't even get all that. She also gave a TEDx talk about her international humanitarian work in Africa. And if that's not all, she's also launched a food startup called Minifish. And that's not all. That's not all, folks. She's also launching a brand new book called Eat Your Vitamins. Mascha, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's so exciting to be here. I love it.
Well, you are just a bundle of energy. And as those of us who are watching the YouTube, you just kind of like jump out of the screen. So you are certainly a product of what you teach. I'd like to dive, before we get into kind of what you're doing now, is how did you find yourself? How did you get into the nutrition industry? And then, you know, you're also an entrepreneur and you're also an educator and you got all this background, like, and you're not just talking about these things, you're obviously living this thing, and you're a humanitarian. So like, how is it possible that one person could combine all of these things? And how did you get so passionate on this journey? So over to you. I'm curious about this story.
Okay. Well, I would say it all kind of started with my family coming to the States as political refugees when I was 7. And, you know, at the time I had no idea that I wanted to do anything related to nutrition or health, but it really affected me. That experience really affected me. And as I grew older, I began to realize just how incredibly fortunate I had been to end up in the US, to have this, you know, the opportunity to have a great education and access to really healthy, good food and all the other opportunities that I was able to have. And it really made me feel a huge sense of gratitude, responsibility. And as I got older, went to college, was figuring out what I wanted to do, nutrition and health really spoke to me. And I also began to do some traveling on my own. I spent a summer in India, which was really impactful. I saw how so many people live and the fact that so many people don't have access to good nutrition and healthy, nourishing foods and clean water, and what a huge impact that has on their quality of life and their ability to thrive and, you know, be their best and highest self. And I decided that was where I really wanted to put my energy and make an impact. So I studied nutrition, became a registered dietitian, nutritionist. And then what brought me out to LA was actually grad school. I did my MPH, my master's in public health at UCLA. Spent a couple of years working in LA after that. But I always felt this calling to go abroad and work internationally. So I did a fellowship in Geneva through Duke University. That was called the Program in Global Policy and Governance. And then after that, I went to Africa and I spent 5 years in Africa doing humanitarian aid work. So it was almost entirely focused on treatment and prevention of severe acute malnutrition in children and women. So very focused on nutrition still, but very different from what I'm doing now. Came back to LA after that 5 years in Africa, and that's when I started my private practice, wrote my book last year, and also saw this really huge gap in the market for an incredible, sustainable, clean, delicious, ready-to-eat seafood product. And that's when I launched Mini Fish.
That might be the greatest summary of an incredible life I've ever heard. So I think this is fascinating because, you know, I also share I would call the digital nomad virus. I spent about 12 years traveling the world and living abroad in different countries. So I can and I think a lot of people, it's fascinating how you get to other cultures and you can really start to appreciate the benefits that we have. And then there's almost this kind of weird thing is like, even though we have all these opportunities and benefits, how many people are kind of squandering them and complaining about what is when we have virtually every opportunity there could possibly be in the world. With your nutrition practice that you're dealing with today in LA, tell me about what is, if you can explain for our listeners, what is Nutrigenomics? Why do you focus on that particular? And what are the type of people who come to see you to find out about this? Because I think this is, as they would call it's not just the cutting edge, this is the bleeding edge of where we are in nutrition and why there's so much variance in kind of dietary philosophies and why people choose this and all this kind of confusion. How do you sort through all that?
Yeah, and I love what you said, that it's the cutting edge or bleeding edge. I completely agree. You're totally right in that it is definitely the future of nutrition and of health. It's this shift towards personalization and individualization and really figuring out what works for every single person individually, because we're different. We don't have the same DNA. Our bodies don't respond the exact same way to the foods that we eat. So why would we be prescribing the same kind of diet to all these different people when they're going to be reacting in different ways? So this Nutrigenomics really helps us to drill down to figure out what's going to work for every individual person and what their unique needs are, what deficiencies they may have, how they're metabolizing different macronutrients and micronutrients. And ultimately, this is a way to optimize our health. And, there's still so much research being done. There are new variants being identified daily. So there's a lot of, this is moving really fast. There's a lot of evolution happening in this field. But the interesting thing is that we already know a huge amount. There's already been a lot of research that establishes macronutrient metabolism, potential micronutrient deficiencies. So it's really interesting, and the test is already available to the public. I offer it to my clients. I work with a lot of people. Almost all my clients get the test, and people come to me.
Can you talk about the test for a little bit? So people who what is a Nutrigenomic test? How do you take it? You got to draw blood. You got to fill out a survey. Do they need to cut off an arm? How does that work?
Yeah, good questions. It's super easy. It's a cheek swab. So You swab each cheek. There's no blood. It's very simple. You can do it at home. You can do it at my office. And then the swab gets mailed into the lab where it's analyzed. And there are about 75 different genetic variants related to health and nutrition that the test analyzes and evaluates. So it's everything from how you metabolize the different macronutrients, so proteins, carbs, and fats, to which micronutrients you might be predisposed to be deficient in. And it also looks at some health indicators. So things like predisposition to having elevated cholesterol or predisposition to having elevated blood sugar levels, which is really, really helpful for people to know, because then they know, okay, if I have this predisposition, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's your destiny. That's a really important distinction to make. And that's something that I really discuss with all of my clients. It's not something to be afraid of. Just because you predisposition or a tendency to have high blood sugar doesn't mean that that's going to happen. What it does mean is that if you are eating in an unhealthy way, if you're not working out, if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not eating your vitamins, which is what my book is all about, then you will be more likely than someone without that predisposition to develop that condition. So this information is really empowering, and it's a way to, it's a way to take control of your health and your lifestyle and make sure that you're looking out for certain potential red flags.
I think that's such a great thing because, one of the things that used to drive me crazy before the development of Nutrigenomics is people would advocate a diet philosophy or a particular nutrient profile or whatever it happened to be. And then, the kind of semi-educated person would say, yeah, well, what about old Charlie Smith that's been up the hill drinking a gallon of vodka a day and smoking 2 packs of cigarettes and lived to 98. Well, perhaps his genetics was allowed him to get away with that and someone else's, it wouldn't. And this is where I think this field is so powerful, because it now gives definitive explanations of why one person can eat sugar and be okay, and another person can eat sugar and it's an absolute disaster. Or some people can be on a high fat diet and it's wonderful for them, and another person it's absolute suicide. And without that information, really people are just kind of blindly walking around and taking random dietary components and maybe missing some key elements. Is that what you're finding?
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. And, people before Nutrigenomics, they sometimes try all these different diets and ways of eating. And eventually they may land on the one that works really well for them. But this is a way to kind of hone in on that a lot faster. So some people do really well on a lower carb diet and other people don't. Other people just need more carbs. So it's not like, low carb or keto is going to be great for everyone. It's really dependent on your genes and how your body metabolizes and responds to different nutrients.
Yeah, I know. I've seen that in my own life. As I was doing some recent testing not that long ago, and I was going to get a T-shirt that actually said "Carbivore" because I do eat a lot of carbohydrates, or I have a highly active lifestyle. But my blood sugar level when we did my testing was where a lot of people are trying to get in a ketogenic diet. Now, my business partner, who is a ketogenic guy, if he eats carbs, like he smells a carb, his blood sugar spikes really, really high. And so he's found for him that that's a better diet that suits his lifestyle and goals. And then we drill down and let's talk about this. For example, you and I could eat the same amount of, say, zinc in our diet, but how we would absorb that zinc could be various different. So, let's say we're getting 50 grams of zinc in a diet that we were both getting. Maybe I'm only getting 10% of that and you're getting 90% of that. How do you use this technology to kind of determine where your clients is or where they could get the most benefits or selecting those diets? And after a person does maybe one of these tests, what's the process? How does that, what happens after that? Because I think people are curious about, well, what happens here? What happens when I get inside the fun house?
Yeah. So in terms of how we use the results, first of all, we do the test. It takes a few weeks to get the results back, and it's about 50 pages. It's a pretty lengthy report. So first of all, we sit down, we go through everything, focus on the outliers or the, potential flags. So, there's a list of vitamins and nutrients that someone could be predisposed to have a deficiency in. So not only are those nutrients going to be ones that we focus on getting through the diet, but it also helps to guide some of the other testing that I recommend. So just because someone has a predisposition to be low in B12 doesn't necessarily mean that they will be, but it gives us a really good guide we should be looking at with other clinical testing. So getting that checked and then optimizing foods that are high in B12, or if someone doesn't eat a lot of foods that are high in B12, if they're vegan, if they're not eating animal products, then figuring out the right supplements that'll get them those vitamins.
Yeah, that's a great point. Now, typically, what do these type of tests cost for people? How much would it take to take a Nutrigenomic test, and how would they get access to that?
There's a lot of different tests on the market. I don't know the price of all of them, but the one that I offer is $300. That's the Nutrigenomic one.
Super reasonable, but can you figure you could spend years and years trying to figure things out or following other people's dietary recommendations that have no basis in yourself. Yeah. So let's get into a little bit more of this, because I think typically someone comes to you, they're struggling with whatever, they do one of these tests, and then what happens after you've kind of determined here's your report. Now, do you build out a menu program in regards to that?
Yeah, that's part of it. So, the Nutrigenomics test is one tool out of many tools. So I see it as like another really awesome tool in the toolkit. So in addition to that, I still do my full in-depth assessment, which takes over an hour, where we go through the full history of my clients. So we talk about everything that they're eating and drinking, their medical history, their other lab results. So, their blood work. We talk about family history. We talk about stress and sleep and all these other things that impact their health and wellness and the type of nutrition that they're going to need to support their lifestyle and their health goals. And then we incorporate the Nutrigenomics test into the individualized plan that I create for them. So I really believe in personalization and individualization, and every plan is going to be different. It's going to depend on the client's motivation, how much time they have, because I want to set people up to be successful. So if I give someone, a really complicated, time-consuming plan, but they don't have the time or the willpower or the motivation to follow through with all of that, then I'm going to set them up for failure, which I don't want to do. So it's, my philosophy is really all about meeting people where they're at and figuring out how can we take really small, manageable baby steps to get you closer to your goals. And then we build on that. And some people can get there within a few months. And then I have clients that I've been working with for 2 years, and they've made amazing, massive progress, but it's taken them a bit of time to really integrate everything into their lifestyle to build habits, because it's not an easy thing to do.
It certainly is. You must have seen some trends that you're finding in your practice, particularly in North American diets and things. So what are some key elements, for example, that you find, and I think I'm going to kind of cue you up because I know you address some of this in your book, but what are some things that you are finding that people are struggling with as a common element in North American society?
Well, first of all, almost everyone struggles to eat enough fruits and vegetables. I mean, that's just like across the board. I would say like 90% of people, 90% of my clients need to be eating more fruits and vegetables. And as they start to make, it sounds really simple, but for a lot of people, it's a struggle.
Well, where do you get decent fruits and vegetables in your average, your average store? You're traveling around or going to your cafeteria or at work in your office or where you might go for a restaurant or all these sort of things. A lot of the impact stuff, you don't have it. So it does have to be a conscious practice.
It really does. It really has to be this like very conscious, mindful decision that you have to sort of plan for in advance. So getting more fruits and vegetables, planning out your meals, that's a big hurdle for a lot of people, is if they can just think ahead even a little bit and do a little bit of planning, that can make a world of difference.
It takes a lot of pressure off by planning, as I've noticed. Like, once the people go, oh no, I got a meal plan that seems so rigid, but then once you're into it, he's like, I don't have to think about this anymore. I just know I prepare this and that's it. It's done. Yep. It's actually easy.
It actually makes your life way easier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally true. That's another thing that I do as part of the plan that I create for my clients is we do a custom meal plan for all of them. And some of my clients eat out almost every single meal. So we'll incorporate that. I'll say, well, where are you eating? And then let's pick the healthiest options. And here's how you can combine these different, options on this menu to create a decently healthy meal, depending on where you're eating. So it's really doable. But other trends that I'm seeing, there are certain nutrients that a lot of people are deficient in, kind of across the board. So vitamin D is a really, really big one. Choline is really important. A lot of people don't even know about choline or where would get it.
When you say these, where would be some places they could get these kind of foods? Like
the foods?
Yeah.
The foods that they can get them from?
Yeah, without tipping all the information in your book, just a couple little tidbits.
Yeah. Well, vitamin D it's found in very few foods. Fatty fish is probably the best source. And then there are foods that are fortified with vitamin D, but this is actually one of the vitamins that I recommend supplementing with. Most people do require a vitamin D supplement because we don't spend enough time, our body makes vitamin D from sunlight. And because we're not spending a lot of time in the sun, and when we do, we're covered up and wearing sunscreen, which is good and important. But because we're not running around naked, getting sunshine.
And why aren't we doing that? What's happened to us? We've gotten so civilized.
I know. But a lot of people do need to be taking a vitamin D supplement. And as more research comes out on vitamin D, we're seeing how incredibly important it is. I mean, it's linked to weight management. So it's implicated in obesity and overweight. It's implicated in our immune system and autoimmune conditions. So there's so many functions that it has that are now starting to come to light. And
I know there's a lot of nutrition experts that are almost considering it a hormone. It's that potent, vitamin D and its activation of things. And of course, think about
it. Actually, is a hormone. It's it's called vitamin D, but that's actually a misnomer. Vitamin D is actually a hormone. It's not a vitamin.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's jump into choline.
Yeah, so choline is fascinating. Choline is the newest nutrient to be considered essential. So choline was discovered in the 1800s, but it wasn't until I think it was the 90s. It was like 1998 that the Institute of Medicine actually deemed it an essential nutrient. Isn't that
wow. Yeah,
So, essential nutrients, I mean, the reason that vitamins are called vitamins, the word vitamin is, the origin of it's vital amine, and that means that it's vital to life. So without the proper amount of any single one of the vitamins, we will get sick and eventually die. right? So that's why vitamins are called vitamins, because they're essential to life.
Which I find so ironic that you see over and over medical people talking about, well, there's no evidence that vitamins make you healthy. And I just want to like lose my brain on this when I hear people talking about this. It's because I've seen so many people that's added different things to their diet or some of these key elements, and their lives transform, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is like the cornerstone of health and cornerstone of disease prevention.
Mm-hmm. So choline, where do we get it?
So choline is now considered an essential nutrient, meaning if we don't have enough of it, we will get sick and eventually die. And it's super important because it's linked to immunity. There's a lot of research coming out showing the links between choline and brain health. So it's really important for a healthy brain, not only brain development in babies, which is why it's also really important for women to eat enough choline, especially if they're going to be getting pregnant or if they want to get pregnant. But also for adults, it's really important for brain health optimization. And it's also really important for liver health. It can help to prevent fatty liver disease, which we're seeing a lot of.
And for me, I know choline's a big one for me. I do really well on choline. I love that product. So
yeah, choline's really important. The source where we get it, most people get the majority of their choline from eggs. Mm-hmm. So eggs have a good amount. Beef liver actually has probably the highest amount of any food. Fish has choline. Beans contain some choline. Chicken has choline. Mushrooms, specifically shiitake mushrooms, have a decent amount of choline in them as well. Red potatoes with the skin on.
Love it.
Yeah. So in my book, Eat Your Vitamins, at the end of every single nutrient and mineral section, there's a recipe that shows people how to optimize that specific nutrient in their diet. So at the end of the choline chapter, I have this delicious recipe that's high in choline. So it's a way for people to really like implement that knowledge right away.
Perfect segue. Let's jump into that right now. Let's talk about your book, Eat Your Vitamins. That's correct. That's the correct title. Mm-hmm. So when we were on the plane to Mexico, I remember you were, getting ready, completed this and we're working on getting all your agent, your media, everything's kind of right. And here we are ready to launch. It's like time this comes out, you'll probably have launched it. How did this come about? I want to know the backstory of the book. And I thought it was fascinating how you had described specifically how you had actually this was a very unique way to do it. It's about eat your vitamins, and then you're actually giving people where they need to eat it and recipes and stuff. Like, first off, that's super genius. But second off, how did you come to this book? How did it write? What's it all contain, basically, a kind of a 30,000 foot overview and a little bit of backstory on that?
Yeah. So, well, I can't take all the credit because my publisher came to me. So Simon & Schuster actually reached out to me exactly a year ago. It was last January. I was in New York, and the story is actually kind of crazy because
I love crazy stories.
And I'm super science based. That's like the foundation of everything I do is, where's the research? I want to see the science. I want to see the proof. But I also really believe in manifestation, and there's not like a lot of scientific evidence for it.
It's starting to come though. It's now starting to develop through quantum mechanics and collapse of the wave function on the Dirac equation. I'm a bit of a physics junkie on the side, so for example, they've been able to have people meditating in a city. And drop the crime rate by 25-30% by everybody holding things in mind. And this is explained through, high level theoretical quantum physics, and now we actually have the scientific and computer models to actually start proving this. So there is validity to this, but continue on. Let's keep rolling with this manifestation of 1 year ago.
Well, and to your point, I also think that there's a lot that we just don't have the science,
to support. Just because we don't have the science right now doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And I think that's one of the major challenges that people have who are married to the scientific method is you have to be able to measure. And just because you don't have the measuring device doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. I mean, we didn't have telescopes for most of humanity. And then, one guy, gets subjected to being locked up under house arrest and everything because he says, hey, we're not the center of the universe anymore. It was always that way.
Yeah.
We just didn't know.
Yeah. So I do this every month, but especially every year, I write out my goals and my intentions and what I want to manifest. And I was on this flight to New York, on this trip that I had manifested. I specifically had said, I want to go to New York. And it all happened very, very quickly. I'm on the plane. Okay. And have my journal, and I was like, okay, I feel like I'm ready to, really focus on what I want to create this year. I wrote out a list. There are maybe 10 things on that list. And at the very top, I wrote, get a book deal. Wow. And a week later, I'm in my hotel room in New York, and I open up my email. And there was an email from Simon & Schuster, and it said, hey, we want to talk to you about this book idea.
Wow. That's so unusual, because usually it's people are pitching these places to get a book and they're reaching out to you to do a book.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. It was amazing. And it was a really, it was the perfect fit. So they already had the concept in mind, and then we brainstormed and fleshed it out together, the whole structure, the outline, what the book was going to look like. I had the idea of including recipes at the end of every single section. So it was a really awesome collaborative process, and that's how it all came about.
And then talk about some of the, how the book's laid out and how, and why it's so important and relevant for people to kind of check into right now in today's world, where there's so much confusion about health and nutrition and these type of things.
Yeah. So there is not a single health and nutrition book that goes through every single nutrient. So every single vitamin, mineral, and even antioxidants, phytonutrients, pre and probiotics. There's no book that covers everything this comprehensively, that includes every single one of these nutritional compounds. So that was the first main thing, was that we wanted it to be this really comprehensive guide that was very easy to read and understand. So it's very conversational. It doesn't read like a textbook. It's more like reading a magazine, where you get quick facts, interesting information, the benefits, the function of that nutrient, how much of it you need, what foods it's found in, and then the recipe that can help you to optimize that nutrient. So every single vitamin, mineral has its own mini chapter.
Yep.
And then at the end, we have the recipe and really interesting information about all of them. And of course, it's all based on the latest research, which, as we were saying, just because we don't have the evidence for something, even a few years ago, the field of nutrition moves so quickly. There's so much research happening. There's constantly new information coming out. Guidelines are constantly being updated. So that was the other really cool thing about writing this, was that I really, I dug into the latest research and the latest studies and the newest information and included that in this book.
Super cool. I think it's I'm excited to get a copy of this book.
The Bioptimizer mission is to help more of the world fix their digestion at a core level. The truth is, your digestion is only as good as your enzyme levels. Imagine trying to build a house with a tree. It's impossible. You need to chop the tree down into small pieces. Similarly, in order for your food to be used by your body, it must be broken down into a bioavailable form. And that's what enzymes do, converting protein into amino acids, fats into specific fatty acids, and carbohydrates into usable energy units. We start out with an abundance of enzymes, and that's why kids can digest just about anything really quickly. The thing is cooking food kills enzymes as they cannot survive at temperatures above 118 degrees. So years of this ends up depleting our bodies and leads to weak digestion. Taking digestive enzymes like masszymes, which has an incredibly high level of protease for digesting protein, as well as other critical enzymes like lipase, amylase, and others is a total game changer. Suddenly you strengthen your digestion, eliminate gas and bloating, boost metabolism, and multiply your energy. Most importantly, you fix your digestion at a core level. To get started with Masszymes and to save 10% on your first order, go to masszymes.com. That's MASSZYMES.com and use the code MASS10, MASS10.
I know you're going to be doing a book launch here in LA really soon, and I'm going to be there because I want to get my hands on this. I think it's relative, and even me who has a background, I don't always have the time to go and find out what is the latest stuff, what is the newest and latest and greatest and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's a great service there. Talk to me now, if that wasn't enough. So if that wasn't enough, you've got the book, you've got your personal practice, but you've also got another pet project on the go. You were just showing me recently. Talk to me about your company called Minifish.
Yes.
I want to, I think this is one of the big issues, and it was interesting. I was just at a Tony Robbins event recently. I actually at two this year, one Business Mastery in Las Vegas, and then recently his Date with Destiny and in down in Florida. And what was the interesting component? Now, Tony is a massive health advocate and has been for years. And what a lot of people don't realize is he's actually, I think, got the highest recorded mercury levels of any human in history. And he's severely damaged his health. And he's in the process of getting the mercury out of his body. But he's not even supposed to be alive at the levels he has. And the reason that is because he got to a diet where he ate mostly salads and fish. And the fish coming in the deep sea was filled with all this mercury. And then all that mercury filled up Tony. And he said one day he's giving an event and he has an extraordinary memory and extraordinary function of how he's doing his event. And he got to a point in there and he couldn't remember what he was going to say or what was going on. And he's like, something's really wrong. And he started to notice he had a little tremor and stuff. And him, one of these high performer, maybe one of the greatest endurance athletes of all time I've ever met. He's like, how could this be going wrong? And so then someone gave him a test, and a heavy metals test, and was like, you need to come to the hospital immediately. We don't know if you're going to make it. And he's suffered some severe consequences to it. And fish, as we know, is a great source of food. There's a lot of things that go, but there's a lot of contaminated fish in the world. It's a huge, huge problem. So
yeah.
There's so many people that benefit from fish. And even most, what I would say, vegetarians, people who are on a plant-based diet, oftentimes have to include some fish into their diet unless they're super meticulous and just have the right genetics in order to not do that. Talk to me about this product that you're putting out into the market today, because I think it is awesome. I think it's fantastic. I think people who are eating fish need to know about it. Tell me about Minifish.
Yeah. I'm so happy that you shared all of that. And that story, I didn't know that story about Tony Robbins. That's really crazy. And it's interesting because a lot of people don't even know that there's mercury testing available. So I think the levels of mercury poisoning and toxicity are actually much higher than we think, than we
Well, I know
because
it's really common in the bodybuilding community because there's so many people who would eat, a couple cans of tuna a day. And it's one of the very high sources of mercury. And so if you're eating a lot of fish in your diet, chances are it's probably a good idea to go out and get a mercury test immediately.
I agree. And I tell the same thing to my clients. And a shocking number of them who get the test actually come back with their mercury level elevated.
And what's some consequences of, say, mercury poisoning or other metals that you find in fish that people are eating?
And I think that's another good point, is that there's a lot of other environmental toxins. It's not just mercury. There's all kinds of other environmental toxins.
Can you name off some that are happening in fish today? Do you get?
I mean, there's things like arsenic, like anything, any kind
plastics
of environmental. Now. There's a lot of microplastics. Yeah. And, all these different things that are contaminating our oceans. It's like everything you can imagine that gets, dumped into the water and the runoff from different plants, environmental plants. So it's a huge issue. It's a huge concern, not just for our health, but the health of our planet, the health of our oceans. So there's a lot of different pieces.
And then we went to kind of factory farming fish, and there's a whole other problem with a lot of factory farming fish, right?
Yes. Yep.
So.
Yeah. Well, and this is the really interesting thing, is that people have this very negative view of farmed fish. And that's because many of the fish farms that are out there are not good.
Correct.
But that's changing. That's actually
Correct.
changing. So just like how, agricultural farming, there are farms that are not good, that use a lot of chemicals and unhealthy practices. And then there's farms that are good stewards of the environment and they use healthy practices. And it's the same thing is happening with fishing. It's just that it is newer. And so, and it's changing very rapidly as well. So a lot of people don't realize that there's actually really, really good farmed fish out there, that aquaculture is this rapidly evolving industry. And and some of the farmed fish is actually better than the wild fish, because when you get the really good quality aquaculture farmed fish that's using pristine spring water that's not contaminated with any of these environmental toxins and the mercury and the microplastics, you're getting a much better product, a much safer, clear product.
Small story kind of reminds me, when I was a kid, I lived in a very rural area, and it was 5 miles to my nearest neighbor, for those who know my story, and I was on a dirt road, telephone poles under my drawer, and we were the caretakers of a private resort. And at that private resort, we had this big lake, and we had a fish farm. In other words, because people would come fishing, so the water would come in, and we had these fish feeders, and we would go out and feed the fish so they would get really big and really robust, and they'd have all these healthy things. And then people used to come down there and fish them and be very excited. Number one, they'd get these really nice steelhead fish that they loved, and it was a fantastic experience. And I never thought about that, but here was this big lake with lots of fish, like had no fish, and then we had all these fish, and it became part of creating a robust ecosystem. And then people would go down and fish them and eat them, and which is kind of interesting because you're doing something really special in regards to this. Here it is 30 years later, and I'm in the conversation about fish again.
Wow. It's so interesting how things come full circle in that way too.
Yeah. So talk to me more about mini fish. Why did you create this product, and first off, it's super cool. So let's just give me the whole pitch. I want to hear everything about this because it's fantastic.
Awesome. So I saw a huge gap in the market. I saw this need and desire that consumers have for a really clean, healthy source of protein that's also ready to eat. Because a lot of people don't want to cook fish, or they don't know how to cook fish. They find it confusing, and often they don't know what to do. They didn't grow up eating a lot of fish. So, or they're busy and they don't have time to prepare it. And they're also, they see these canned options, the canned tuna, and a lot of people are just turned off by it because they think canned fish is gross, because it kind of is. Because there hasn't been a lot of innovation in that space since the invention of canning 180 years ago. Been very little innovation in terms of the flavor and the quality and the sustainability. Almost all the canned packaged fish that's out there, they're pulling fish out of the oceans, which is depleting ocean stocks and wreaking havoc on our environment. If we continue at this rate, we're going to completely fish out our oceans. We're already headed there, which is not only devastating for the environment, but also hurts a lot of livelihoods. A lot of people are dependent on fishing around the world. And then, of course, it's a huge, important source of protein. It's probably the best animal-based protein, the healthiest animal-based protein that there is, other than the whole issue with mercury and environmental contaminants, which I also want to talk about. But the reason I created mini fish was to combat all
Can
of
you hold
these
that hold that up square for our viewers so they can see that really good? So this is spring water steelhead trout in a citrus marinade with a delicious superfood blend of fennel, red pepper, pumpkin seeds, and turmeric, containing 12 grams of protein, BPA free. This is a lot. This is a really cool package. This sounds great. So why did you pick steelhead trout?
I looked at fish, by the way. And like, as a dietitian, I had all these requirements. It had to be, the fatty acid profile had to be really good because I wanted those amazing omega-3s, the DHA, the EPA. I wanted all those incredible minerals, the selenium and the calcium and all those incredible things that a lot of the small fatty fish have. But then I also wanted to make sure that it was super clean. And then most importantly, no one's going to eat it if it tastes like crap. So it has to taste amazing.
100%. And I see you've combined it with these other elements.
Yeah. And then, of course, I was like, well, I want people to shift to a more plant-based diet. We have to. Like, whether you become fully plant-based, whether you're partially plant-based, we have to be going more plant-based for our health and for the planet's health. So I actually had this idea to make this not just fish, but fish with other superfood ingredients. So it has the seeds, it has the vegetables, it has superfood spices that are anti-inflammatory. So, like, honestly, this is the ultimate superfood. It doesn't get better than this from a nutritional standpoint.
This is almost like an engineered superfood meal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you've now moved into a nutritional engineer. That's another thing that we can put on your moniker. You're a nutritional engineer.
Well, I brought on one of the top food science development companies in the US to help me formulate this because of all the complexity of working with something like seafood, the safety aspect, all of that was really important to me. And we are sourcing, we looked at so many different fish, and I brought on an advisor who's one of the top thought leaders in aquaculture and sustainability in the US, Jennifer Bushman. She's incredible. And she helped me to identify this fish that comes from a pristine aquaculture operation in Idaho. It's some of the cleanest, most beautiful, some of the happiest fish I've ever seen. I actually went and visited the farm last summer. And so we're sourcing our steelhead trout from there. The levels of mercury and environmental contaminants are nearly undetectable. Amazing. It's incredible. Yeah. So it's delicious. It's beautiful. And we're getting ready to launch. The website is up. It's minifish.co, minifish.co. Our Instagram page is up, also minifish.co. We're taking pre-orders right now. We have a discount for pre-orders on the website, and we're getting ready to do the next big run very soon.
We're going to put this in the show notes. Can you say that one more time?
Yeah. So minifish.co. is
And
the
you
website.
and you have a pre-order discount? Can we
Yes,
share what that might be?
there's a pre-order discount. So if people go to the website and put in the pre-order, they will get a 20% discount on a 3-pack of mini fish.
That's really generous. Now,
It's
tell me
awesome.
about this
Yeah.
packaging, because this packaging is really unique. It's not a can. What is this packaging? It looks like it's something that went up on the space shuttle.
It's I also wanted, so because it's like a premium version of what we currently have in the packaged fish section. So it's like a premium elevated version of canned fish. It smells better, tastes better, looks better. I wanted it to have this like sexy modern feel, which I think it does. I mean, it looks so different from what we currently have on the shelf, and it's a super high quality BPA free pouch that you just tear open and it's ready to eat.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Yeah. So and we're using this really innovative way of processing it that's completely different from what is currently used, because I wanted to preserve the integrity of the fish and the product and the nutritional components. So.
And then can
it's
you give us a
amazing.
little bit of the specs on the nutrients that's involved in this, like maybe the back page? Because all of us folks, there we go. Look at that. So there's our nutritional facts panel. If you can read that out for us, that would be great.
Yeah. So 12 grams of protein, and this is a single serving. This is 3.5 ounces. So it's like a ready to eat quick snack, but a very filling snack because I wanted it to have a high amount of protein. So 12 grams, it has 9 grams of fat. So a lot of those amazing healthy omega-3s, the pumpkin seeds also give it awesome, healthy fats as well. It has 2 grams of fiber. That's from the pumpkin seeds and the veggies. Most people don't get enough fiber, so that's really awesome. Only 5 grams of carbs though. So the carb count is super, super low. This has a huge amount of vitamin D, which is very rare for a food. There are very few food sources of vitamin D, but one pouch of this has 56 micrograms, which is really, really high. And I had everything third-party tested. I wanted to know exactly what was in, this specific formulation. So I sent everything out for like extensive analysis.
Now, does this require refrigeration?
It's shelf stable. That's
amazing.
The incredible thing about it. Yeah.
And how long would this be shelf stable for? Like how long can it stay there?
9 to 12 months is
amazing.
What we're telling people initially as like a conservative estimate. We think it's actually going to be longer, but we're going to say 9 to 12 months for now.
Wow. And so that's like vacuum sealed in that pack, and that's how it stays in the preservation. And what a convenient way to store fish without refrigeration. It's obviously easy to carry and travel with. Exactly.
It's in a citrus base, so it has a low enough pH. This is where the food science came in. It has a low enough pH that it prevents the growth of any organisms. So when you have the pH level dialed in correctly, that's what can help it to last longer on the shelf. And of course, having the sealed package where oxygen can't get in.
Super, super great idea. I think that's going to be a smash hit company. And is there any set time of when this is going to start coming out? For people taking pre-orders and stuff?
We are planning to do the next run in the next few months. So by the end of the first quarter of this year or the beginning of next quarter, we're already starting to work on the next run. So
That's great. That's great. What a great invention. And I got a feeling that's going to be a knockout of the park hit for sure. So Mascha, so tell us about the book launch. When's it happening? Where does it go? How do people find out about this new book that's coming out?
Yeah, so Eat Your Vitamins. The publisher is Simon & Schuster. It's already available for pre-order everywhere that you can buy books. So it's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, all the websites. It'll be in stores next week. So it launches January 21st. So yeah, people can get it. They can pre-order it right now and get it next week. And I'm also sharing lots and lots of updates and information straight from the book on my Instagram, which is Nomadista _Nutrition. And then there's information on my website as well, which is nomadistanutrition.com. Yeah.
So you're a very busy woman. You've got a lot going on. I have one last question before by the way, we'll put all this in the show notes. One last question. How does, I would say, a switched on woman like yourself manage writing books, seeing clients, developing products, and staying up to date with the latest Nutrigenomics? How is it that you're able to do all of these things? And obviously you certainly look at the vibrant part. How's that all possible in today's world?
I think it's all about self-care, balance. I really try to get a lot of sleep. I work out when I can, not as much as I want to, but I still try to get my workouts in. I started meditating last year. I've been trying to get into a meditation routine for a while, but I finally got it last year, which I think has been really helpful just for like mental health and stress and all of that. And then having a network and a support system has been critical. Like there's that saying, your network is your net worth. And I think it's so true. Like just having people that you can lean on and rely on, that support you and boost you and help to, when you're stuck with a problem, stuck in a difficult moment, they can help to lift you up or talk through it and get you to that next level. I think that's critical.
That's beautiful. Well, now that I'm in LA, I'll have to take you up to my meditation center. It's a great place. We'll go zone out and chill out from all the hustle and bustle of LA. So I'm looking forward.
That would be amazing.
I'm looking forward to attending the book launch. Can't wait for it to get out. For everyone that's listening, that's Mascha Davis, and check out her book, Eat Your Vitamins by Simon & Schuster. It's available everywhere, Amazon, you name it, Target. And check out her website. And if you're out there, particularly, now, do you do clients around the world or yes.
I work with people virtually as well.
Beautiful. So find out, look, Nutrigenomic testing did so much for my life, and I really appreciate it. And it was kind of like the missing element between the variances between different diets and different people and how they do on it. And so go in, find out what she's doing, hire her, check out her book, and get on the order for this mini fish. I think that's going to be a world beater, that one. I think that's the timing as well. I can't believe no one else has thought of it. Thank God there's geniuses like you in the world making a difference. So thank you so much for joining us today on the Awesome Health Show. We've got all the show notes in here. Look forward. Maybe we'll get you back on the show again, but definitely we'll get a chance to go hit the meditation thing and read that book, and I'll do a review of that when I get the opportunity.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Wade. You are awesome.
Thank you.
And now for a Bioptimizers fixed digestion tip: how to get away with eating sugar. Hey, look, sugar is normally one of the worst things for you. But let's be honest. I mean, we all cheat from time to time. And here's a little trick that will ensure your body benefits from the sugar. Now, before you eat or drink anything sweet, take 5 to 8 capsules of P3OM. The patented strain in the formula devours sugar so fast it literally doubles in the body every 20 minutes in the presence of sugar. That doesn't mean that you can or you should eat a bunch of sugar or sit around all day doing that. But on the days that you do cheat, or you go after one of those maybe meals that you wouldn't normally do, this ensures that you get something in your gut that eats the sugar. And it's not going to feed the bad guys or spike your blood glucose nearly as much. So to learn more about P3OM and its sugar-devouring and protein-digesting properties and how it can transform your gut and metabolism, go to www.bioptimizers.com.
Thank you for listening to the Bioptimizers Awesome Health Podcast. You can find more information at bioptimizers.com.